Kale had expected the victory shuttle to smell like triumph, maybe something metallic and heroic. Instead, it smelled like burnt wiring and recycled sock vapor, a reminder that the Galactic Defense Council cared more about winning wars than about basic ventilation. He slumped in his seat, armor dented, hair flattened by a helmet he hadn't removed for 32 straight hours, and muttered to himself that if anyone dared hand him a clipboard full of forms when he landed, he would throw himself back into battle just to escape the paperwork. The shuttle descended toward Illyria Prime, its towers rising like polished silver needles under the glow of the system's twin suns. Kale tried not to stare, but it was hard not to be impressed. Humans built functional things. Illyrians built things that looked like they auditioned for opera. The landing pad extended with a hiss of crystalline panels, and before he could stretch his legs, a squad of palace guards surrounded him with synchronized elegance that suggested they practiced dramatic entrances for fun. "Human warrior Kale Vance," the lead guard announced. "The Queen requests your presence." Kale blinked. "Already? Can I shower first? Or, I don't know, be hosed down like a starport stray?" "The Queen," the guard said, unamused, "requests your presence." "Right, smelly hero incoming." He followed them through an enormous corridor lined with luminescent vines that pulsed softly, like they were alive and mildly judging him. Kale resisted the urge to poke one. Last time he touched alien flora without permission, he'd hallucinated his boots singing motivational songs. At the end of the hall, the throne chamber unfolded like a universe opening. Light shimmered from panels in the floor, weaving star patterns that shifted with each step. Kale tried to walk with dignity, but his ankle popped loudly, echoing through the chamber like a tiny explosion. He winced, hoping no one noticed. Everyone noticed, but none reacted because all eyes were on the Queen. She rose from her throne with a fluid grace Kale could never hope to imitate even on his best, least sleep-deprived day. She looked human, almost completely, except for the long ears that arched back elegantly, twitching slightly as if catching frequencies beyond human range. Her silver hair flowed like starlight, and her eyes locked onto his with a shock so intense it felt like a physical force. Kale straightened, wondering if he had done something catastrophically stupid without realizing. Maybe he'd tracked battlefield mud into the sacred chamber. Maybe he'd accidentally insulted a cosmic deity again. It happened once. But the Queen stepped closer, her expression a turbulent mix of disbelief, confusion, and something softer hiding beneath. "It's you," she whispered. Kale looked behind him. Nothing. Just more guards and a silent room full of very confused diplomats. He said brilliantly. "Me who, me, or some other me?" She ignored the question entirely. Not a great sign, and circled him slowly, as though confirming he was not an illusion. "The warrior who ended the war, the human who saved our people. And yet," her voice trembled, "you stand before me as if you have never seen me in your life." Kale scratched the back of his neck. "Well, to be fair, I haven't. I think I'd remember someone with ears that aerodynamic." A few guards gasped. The Queen did not. Instead, she stared at him with an intensity that sank straight into his chest. "Kale," she said, "not as a title, not as a formality, but as something personal. We knew each other when we were young." Kale froze. "That seems unlikely. I grew up in the Terran Midwest, which is famous for cornfields and aggressively normal people. Not exactly intergalactic royalty territory." Her eyes softened, and she lifted a hand toward him but stopped inches from his cheek, as if afraid touching him might break something fragile. "You were not born in the Midwest. You were raised in the diplomatic academy where human and Illyrian children trained together. You and I, we were friends, close friends. We made a promise beneath the twin moons of my homeworld." Kale opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "Okay, I think the recycled air on my shuttle might have been spiked." Her long ears tilted forward, a sign he vaguely remembered meant annoyance. "I speak the truth." "I believe you," Kale said. "Mostly because if I say otherwise, your guards may vaporize me." They will do nothing, she replied sharply. This is between us. The room had gone so silent Kale could hear his heartbeat tripping over itself. He tried to laugh to lighten the moment. So, we were childhood friends. Huh, that's awkward. I didn't bring a friendship gift, unless you want one of my emergency ration bars. They taste like despair. Instead of smiling, the queen inhaled shakily, her voice dropping to a whisper. You truly don't remember. I'm sorry, he said, softer than he intended. I wish I did. She stepped back, her royal composure slipping only for a fraction of a second. Then we will have to recover what was lost, for your sake, for mine, and for the future of both our worlds. Kale swallowed. Is this the part where I finally get a shower? Her long ears twitched. No, this is the part where your life becomes significantly more complicated. Kale groaned. Of course it is. Kale had faced plasma storms, psychic beasts, and one particularly hostile vending machine on a mining moon. But none of that prepared him for being politely imprisoned, as the queen put it, inside her palace. The room she assigned him was bigger than his entire childhood home. Well, the childhood home he thought he had, and filled with furniture that looked too expensive to sit on. A floating orb drifted after him as he paced, humming cheerfully while scanning him with beams he suspected were not entirely medical. Relax, the queen said when she entered without knocking. It's only monitoring your neural activity. Kale stepped away from the orb. I'd relax more if it didn't giggle every time I think about food. It reacts to emotional spikes, she said. Yours happen mostly when you consider snacks. That's normal. Humans are comfort eaters. She walked closer, long ears tilted with curiosity. Your memories are still sealed. We must unlock them. Right about that, Kale said. Are you sure I didn't just not meet you, ever? Like, are you mixing me up with some other guy with mediocre hair and stunning battle instincts? Her expression flattened. No. Worth asking. She gestured to a crystalline device, unfolding from the wall like a metallic flower. This will help trigger your past. Kale eyed it. It looks like a superweapon disguised as a hair appliance. Sid, I'm getting strong, this is safe, probably vibes, Kale muttered as he sat. Just to be clear, this won't explode my skull. Because I need that. The machine pulsed with soft light, sending a warm current through his temples. He tensed, then relaxed as the sensation washed over him like warm water that smelled vaguely of melted starlight. A memory flickered. He was small, shorter at least, and running through a glowing courtyard. A long-eared girl chased him, laughing, her voice bright and familiar. Got you, Kale, she shouted. He gasped aloud, eyes snapping open. Okay, that wasn't a hallucination, right? That was real. The queen's breath caught. Yes, you remember. Barely, he said, but I was cute. What happened? You grew up, she replied dryly, with questionable grooming habits. He grinned despite the weight of the moment. Your ears were shorter back then. Do they grow with royalty or something? She narrowed her eyes. My ears were perfectly proportional. You simply had terrible depth perception. Before Kale could respond, a chime echoed through the palace. A holographic guard flickered into view. Your Majesty, another petition from the Outer Council. They demand an audience concerning the human. Kale raised a hand. Should I hide? I can fit in a closet if I really try. The queen waved him off. They can wait. Then lower, they always wait. She led Kale into a garden, enclosed by a shimmering energy dome. Alien trees arched overhead, their leaves glowing faintly as if whispering secrets to the atmosphere. Kale resisted the urge to poke one again. He really had learned nothing. The queen paused beside a fountain that rippled upward rather than downward, forming spirals of water that danced in the air. Our shared past was not removed naturally, she said. Someone erased it. Kale stiffened. Who and why? I mean, I know I can be annoying, but memory erasure is a bit extreme. There were political factions who feared our bond, she said. Even as children, we were inseparable. They thought a human growing close to the future queen might shift alliances, in unpredictable ways. Well, congrats to them, Kale said. Mission accomplished. I can't even remember your favorite snack. Starberry ice flakes. Ah, good taste. Her eyes softened, but before the moment could settle, a shrill beep sounded from Kale's wrist. He looked down to see a tiny drone, no bigger than a berry, clamped to his gauntlet with mechanical claws. Is this one of yours? The queen's face darkened. No, hold still. The drone emitted a high-pitched whine that suggested imminent explosion. Kale swore. It's always the small ones. The queen flicked her fingers, and a burst of sonic energy shattered the drone into harmless dust. Kale stared at his now dirty sleeve. Great. Another assassination attempt. I swear this is why I don't join clubs. She examined the dust. This is Illyrian tech. Someone inside the palace is watching us. Kale exhaled sharply. Good. Fantastic. Exactly what I needed, a stalker. Her long ears twitched in agitation. We must proceed carefully. Your memories may hold the key to exposing the traitor. Or, Kale said, raising a finger, the traitor just really hates humans. Which is understandable. I've met my people, we're loud. You, she said, are loud, the rest vary. He laughed, and she allowed the corner of her mouth to lift ever so slightly. Then the machine flower device chimed from the room they'd left behind, signaling another memory fragment ready to reveal itself. The queen's gaze found his. Are you ready for more? Kale inhaled slowly. If it means figuring out why my brain is playing hide-and-seek with my past. Yeah, let's do it. Worst case, I start remembering embarrassing childhood moments. You had many, she said helpfully. Of course I did. They walked back together, not touching but close enough that Kale felt her presence steady beside him. A warmth he didn't remember but somehow missed anyway. The memory device pulsed again, brighter than before, as if it had grown impatient. Kale sat down beneath its crystalline petals, trying to look brave despite the fact that he was sweating like someone about to take a final exam he'd never studied for. The queen stood beside him, one hand hovering cautiously near his shoulder. Her long ears tilted in concentration as the machine hummed to life. Light washed over him, and the world split open. He saw two children, himself, small and scrappy, and the young queen with her shorter ears, hiding inside a starlit courtyard. They were laughing, trying to mimic the elders' serious voices, swearing an oath of friendship that would outlast planets and politics. Then came shadows, robed figures whispering, pulling him away while she screamed his name with a fear he didn't understand until this moment. A flash of white erased everything. Kale gasped, the memory slamming back into him like a meteor. They took me, he whispered. They ripped me away from you. The queen closed her eyes, steadying herself. Yes, you were becoming too important to me. They feared you would influence the throne. They stole your memories to preserve their vision of Illyria. Well, Kale said, rubbing his temples, their vision seems to involve attempted murder and terrible interior decorators, so I'm not impressed. Before she could answer, the lights in the room flickered. A shadow materialized at the entrance, a tall Illyrian, robed in dark silver, eyes sharp with cold calculation. Kale recognized him from the accusation-filled council sessions he'd been dragged to. This was Counselor Ryden, the man who had spent the last week trying to convince half the galaxy that Kale was a cosmic threat disguised as a messy-haired hero. You were never meant to remember, Ryden said, stepping forward with a confidence that set Kale's instincts screaming. Your removal was necessary to protect our world. Kale stood, fists clenched. So your grand plan was to erase a kid's mind, kidnap him, and then spend the next 20 years making really bad political decisions. You misunderstand. I acted for Illyria. He acted for himself, the queen said sharply. He feared our unity, he wanted control. Ryden smiled, which was deeply unsettling. Your Majesty, your attachment to this human has always weakened you. It is time to correct the past. He raised a device. Kale recognized it, another memory suppressor, upgraded and weaponized. Kale lunged just as Ryden triggered it. the pulse grazing his arm and sending a jolt through his nerves. The queen pulled him aside, energy crackling from her fingertips as she unleashed a wave of force that shattered the memory device from Raiden's hand. The counselor staggered back, stunned. Kale didn't hesitate. He grabbed the fallen device's battery core, which looked dangerously explosive, and threw it at Raiden's feet. "Cover your ears," he yelled. The queen did. Kale did not. The resulting blast sent him hurtling backward, ringing echoing in his skull like someone had detonated a star inside his head. Again. He was getting used to it. When the smoke cleared, Raiden was pinned beneath collapsed crystalline panels, groaning in defeat. Palace guards rushed in too late, staring in awe at the wreckage. "Take him," the queen commanded, her voice echoing with authority that left no room for argument. "He will answer for his crimes." As the guards hauled Raiden away, Kale dropped onto a step, rubbing his aching ears. "I am officially done being blasted today, or ever." "You risked yourself," the queen murmured, kneeling beside him, "just like when we were children." "Well," Kale said, forcing a grin, "some things stick even when you scrub the brain clean. Self-sacrifice, bad decision-making, my charming personality." She let out a soft laugh, quiet, real, warm. Then her face gentled in a way that made Kale's heart flutter uncomfortably. "Now that your memories have returned, what will you do?" He blinked. "You mean I have options? I figured your guards would keep politely imprisoning me forever." "You are free," she said. "The war is over, your past is restored, you owe us nothing." Kale stared at her, at the silver of her eyes, at ears that had once been smaller but just as expressive, at someone who had mourned him long before he even knew she existed. "Maybe I don't owe you anything," he said softly, "but I don't want to leave." Her breath caught, the slightest tremor of hope flickering across her face. "You would stay here?" "Well, yeah," he said. "Someone has to make sure you don't get assassinated by fruit-sized drones. And you apparently need someone around to tell you when your ears twitch in a funny way." "They do not twitch," she protested. "They definitely twitch." She rolled her eyes, but her smile betrayed her. "And what would you be, Kale Vance? A court advisor, a royal guard, a diplomat perhaps?" Kale stood, brushing dust from his armor. "How about your friend? The one I was supposed to grow up to be. And maybe something more if you'll have me, slowly, no rush. I've had enough trauma for one lifetime." Her silence stretched for a heartbeat too long, and he wondered if he'd misread everything. Then she stepped forward, took his hand, and squeezed it with a certainty that set his pulse racing. "I never stopped waiting for you," she said, "even when I convinced myself it was hopeless." Kale swallowed hard. "Guess I'm late then." "Only by 20 years. Well, I brought explosions. That counts as a gift, right?" "Not a good one," she said, "but it is fitting." Together they walked from the chamber, side by side, their steps slow, unhurried, echoing memories newly regained and a future newly decided. Outside, the twin suns rose higher, casting long beams of gold across the palace, and for the first time since the war ended, Kale felt like he was walking toward something,